Welcome to Exploring Hyperspace Lanes. I'm Adam.
And I'm Josie.
So we're gonna have a little bit of a shorter episode because I ran into some delays earlier today. But we're still gonna have
What
some
were you
cool
doing?
making a coffee run. Okay, we don't have to talk about the specifics. Okay, and we don't have to talk about specifics about what happened. Okay. So we're gonna skip our getting to know the host question of the week. Because it's also partially because Josie does have to go somewhere.
Yes,
Uh,
I have
which
plans on the weekend. Oh my gosh.
yeah, I know. I know. I have plans today too.
Good for you. That's awesome.
I'm sure you do.
I know,
Um,
I believe you. You get
yeah,
out there, you do things.
yeah, I have another podcast to record later today after this.
Oh,
Because
I don't do
plane.
shit ever, so that's why I was being all facetious more about myself.
So she's going to be in charge of letting me know when we're running low on time. So just let me know when we have like 10 minutes left.
Okay.
Because I don't have I was in a rush to set it up. I have my cool new Stream Deck that I didn't plug in because that requires me to rewire everything
Oh,
to use with my external webcam and my microphone. Anyway, so we're gonna jump right in with the big news from this week that you did not want to know in advance.
yeah.
So allegedly, and this is a lot of alleged information that is coming from various sources, but allegedly there is another Star Wars movie coming, and
Oh,
we knew for a while that Disney had taken the 2020s, taken the December of the 2020s, and kind of partitioned them out in a weird way, where it would alternate Star Wars Avatar or Avatar Star Wars, where 2022 we had Avatar 2. Then this year would have been another Star Wars movie. Then 2024 would be Avatar 3, 2025 Star Wars, 2026 Avatar, 2027 Star Wars. So that was, but they never put anything on those dates besides Avatar. We knew Avatar 1, 2, and 3, 2, 3, and 4. Um, this year was supposed to be Rogue Squadron, which was announced at Investor Day in 2020. It was going to be Patty Jenkins directing it, who did Wonder Woman. But that project has fallen by the wayside, and no one knows what's coming out. So this year, there's no movie coming out in December for Disney. Instead, we're getting Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom.
oh,
But the 2025 release date is still on the calendar, and allegedly, according to this rumor, a new movie is going to start shooting in April. And this
oh,
new movie is written by Damien Lindelof. Do you know who that is?
no.
He's the guy. Did you watch Watchmen on HBO?
Yeah.
The guy who made that show. He also did Lost and a few other things.
Okay, so he does like the more dramatized,
Yeah.
like okay.
Lost, The 100, I think he did too.
Oh,
Um,
I like okay.
so he's the writer. Directed by Charmin Obaid Chinoy, which I apologize, I definitely just butchered that. But that name
Yes.
probably doesn't sound familiar to you.
No.
She is an independent like documentary filmmaker. She's won Academy Awards for documentary shorts.
That's cool.
Um, she has some mainstream recognition because she directed two episodes of um Miss Marvel.
Oh.
She directed the two episodes set in Pakistan.
Oh.
So that's her thing. Now, some rumors about this movie. It is set after episode 9. So it's a sequel to the sequel trilogy. It will
Okay.
feature returning cast members from the various sequel trilogy movies, with top candidacy going to John Boyega returning as Finn.
Okay.
Um, and this also there are a few things that lend credibility to this rumor. Number one, I think naming her as a director adds a lot of credibility because if they said, "Oh, it's the Chloe Zhao movie, which is also in development," or it's the Ryan Johnson trilogy that's also in development, or if it's the Kevin Feige movie or the Taika Waititi movie or anything like that, then it'd be like, okay, well, we knew that was happening. I think using her I don't think she's ever directed a movie before. And for a feature debut to be Star Wars, that's a pretty big thing. But you're also working within a studio that's designed to pump out Star Wars movies. So, I mean, I don't have like as long as she has the guidance around her, I don't see how that's a bad thing.
Okay.
Um, but I think naming her lends credibility to it because she's not a huge name,
Oh,
if that makes sense. Where it's like if you're gonna go out and
sure.
stake your reputation reporting on this, why would you go with such a weird choice as this is gonna be the director instead of saying, oh, the next movie's gonna be the Taika Waititi movie, which was what everyone thought was gonna be the next movie.
Hmm. That's a good
Um,
idea.
who did what was it, Love and Thunder and Ragnarok. Another credibility factor was last year there was an interview that came out where Daisy Ridley talked about, and the coverage of the interview was so sexist, by the way. I don't know if we've addressed this. So there's this interview that comes out where she talks about a lot of things in her life that she's done since episode 9. And one of the things she says is, "Oh, and I've become close friends with Jodie Comer, who in Rise of Skywalker plays Rey's mom very briefly in a flashback." Um,
Okay.
she also was the lead in Free Guy, the girl in Free Guy.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, so and it's like and she's in Killing Eve, but like, oh, we become friends and we text all the time, and that was the headline where it's like Daisy Ridley is friends with on screen mom Jodie Comer, and it's like, all right, but the other big part of the interview was she talked about how she had multiple sit down lunches with Kathleen Kennedy, who is the head of Lucasfilm.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't get reported on, and I'm like, why is that not getting reported? Because it's like the ostensibly the protagonist of the last three Star Wars movies had sit down lunches with the person in charge of making Star Wars movies. Why is that not the headline? Where that would be the headline if it was fucking Harrison Ford or if it was Mark Hamill, and it's like, oh, he had sit downs with her, or even if it was like Oscar Isaac,
Mm-hmm.
the headline would have been Oscar Isaac has sit down lunches with Kathleen Kennedy, which could indicate that he's coming back, but that was something else. And the movie will allegedly feature an invasion from outside the galaxy, which would be Disney doing their version of the Yuuzhan Vong invasion. Um, and it seems that Skeleton Crew, which got expedited into production, is being overseen directly by Jon Favreau, who, especially after James Gunn was given head of DC Studios, is considered the heavy favorite to become the head of Lucasfilm when Kathleen Kennedy retires after her current contract. Um, that show is going to be expedited and it's coming out at the end of this year. Also, Ahsoka, which is also coming out this year, is going to leave the galaxy as she goes out to try and find what happened to Ezra Bridger at the end of Rebels and track down Thrawn. So
Oh.
there are a number of factors that lend into the credibility of this rumor if it's true.
Hmm.
So what are your thoughts on a possible episode 10? I don't know if it's going to be Skywalker Saga episode 10 or if it's just next Star Wars movie.
Hmm.
Um, but how do you
Um,
feel about it?
I guess I just hope they don't fuck it up.
I think they're on
Like I
somewhat a
told
right
man.
track.
Hmm.
I think ultimately the issue with why the sequel trilogy failed is because they didn't have a plan going into it.
Yeah.
Like I read Bob Iger's book when he put out his memoir about his
Mm-hmm.
time as CEO at Disney, and he talked about the acquisition of Lucasfilm, and they the board said we will let you buy Lucasfilm and we will give you the approval to buy this for $4 billion, but you need to have a movie out by the end of the third fiscal year, second fiscal year after you buy it, or by the end of the 2014 fiscal year. And they didn't make that. They barely got it out by the 2015 fiscal year, because Disney operates like November or December to November. Um, and that was why that was so rushed out. And the idea of having three different directors do three different movies that are all loosely related as a trilogy doesn't exactly work. Um, but I'm interested to see where this goes. I think Damien Lindelof is like when we think of Lost, I think it's safe to say that Damien Lindelof was more the brains of the operation than J.J. Abrams was.
Hmm.
Because I don't think that J.J. Abrams has done anything particularly unique or interesting since Lost, and that was when he was with Lindelof. Meanwhile, Lindelof has
Hmm.
gone on to do the 100. He's gone on to do um Watchmen and all that stuff. Like Star Trek is not a fantastic movie. The first Star Trek, I mean, the '09 one isn't fantastic. The Into Darkness is just not great at all. And then his two Star Wars movies were not like at the time that we saw the Force Awakens. I remember me and Peter, we did beware of spoilers about it. Well, at the time it was spoilers ahead. Because and then we put up a YouTube feed. We had to change the name because someone already had that name. Um, but we did an episode about it, and it was me, him, and his girlfriend went to see this movie. Um, and I remember we left and we're like, we can guarantee that the only reason we think this movie is good is because it is substantially better than the prequels. And it's just been so long since we had that, and it's been so long since we saw a Star Wars movie in the theater that's definitely obstructing the quality indicators that we have with this. Because
Hmm.
like I don't know about you, but I knew that the minute I saw the like when the movie starts and the Star Wars logo comes up and it says Episode 7 on the screen in the opening crawl, like in that moment I was like, "There's no way I can objectively look at this movie for quality." And watching it since, it doesn't really hold up because it's a less good version of A New Hope.
Yeah, I'm not super like versed in the new stuff at all because I didn't really like it. So, um, I'm not really sure. It's hard for me to comment on the new stuff
Yeah, it's
right
I don't think a
now.
lot of it is particularly great.
Most of them I've fallen asleep while watching.
I think that, and I have a feeling that when we get to this movie, this will be the greatest divergence in opinion. I
Yeah.
think the best of the Disney movies, besides like the best of the Skywalker saga movies that Disney did, is The Last Jedi.
Hmm.
And I think we're gonna differ greatly in opinion on that when we get to that down
Okay.
the line. I have a feeling that you disagree on that, but Rogue One's definitely the best, and yeah. So I think that this is an interesting thing. We'll keep an eye on it. If any other news comes, then we'll talk about it. But for right now, that's it. So with the last half hour or a little less, let's talk about Andor and get Andor ranked
Why don't
uh
you give a brief like overall summary of it? Like
of
not
Andor.
of your opinion, but like what happened in it. Because I have watched it. I just might need a small refresher.
Explain it to me as if you're explaining it to someone who has not watched the show yet.
No, just explain it to me
So
as
it's
though
the
I
the
watched it, but
general
now I'm really sick and it's
the
hard for me to
the the
put it
general I
together.
the general idea of Andor is it's the story of I think what it's going to end up being is a story of the birth of the Rebel Alliance, where at the time Andor takes place, there's a bunch of smaller rebel cells all over
Hmm.
the galaxy, all doing their own independent thing. But this is the story of them starting to unify. It's the story of pushing a fascist regime to commit the worst atrocities it can against the people, so that people
Hmm.
are forced to rise up. That's what the
Okay.
story is. So you get the raid to steal the money, and then the point of that is not necessarily for the money, but the point of that is for the Empire to start raising criminal penalties and to start being more iron-fisted with how they're sentencing and all of that. So that way people are forced to rise up. So you get these things like the prison break, and you get what is ostensibly the Battle of Lexington and Concord for the for the rebellion at Ferrex in the finale. And I think that's mostly what it is. It's a story of what does it take to make a people have to rebel against a fascist regime.
Hmm. Okay.
Is that what you were looking for, or were you looking for a more plot-based
No, I
thing?
was looking for more plot based.
Less thematic.
Yes.
So okay, so Andor kills two guys. Um, in a fight, and then has to go on the run. He meets Stellan Skarsgård, whose character's name I'm forgetting,
Right. So
and
they're going after, like, they're helping this planet to rebel or whatever, or like not the planet, but they're working their own rebel regime and at this planet to try to rebel and, you know,
on
go after
Ferrex,
people.
the way I
Right.
interpreted Ferrex was more like, and maybe I'm completely wrong on this, but I interpreted Ferrex as a separatist world. Maybe I'm just
Okay.
making my own fan fiction on this, but I definitely, when I watched that first episode, I interpreted it as Ferrex was a separatist world that was not happy with being all in on the Republic during the era of the Republic.
I
And
think
then
you
when the
might be
Empire
right.
fell, it kind of did that. So that's why you have this corporation that's entirely in control of the planet, and the Empire is kind of like, you guys just keep control of your shit here. We're not going to look too deeply at it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's how I always interpreted it, because that's where Cyril is like, he's security on the planet.
Oh, okay.
And it's like the Empire doesn't really have a huge standing on Ferrex until the finale.
Oh.
That's how I always interpreted it. I could be wrong, and I could just be creating fan fiction, but I think
Hmm.
that that's kind of what it is.
Okay.
Um, so
I
yeah,
don't
that's what
really
it is.
know. I don't really remember how it ends. I thought it
Um,
was okay. It kept my interest. I think at the end, I just kind of got lost. And maybe it was pretty, or maybe it was just not very memorable, but I cannot remember how it ended except for, yep, it worked.
the like, what do you mean it worked? Like the fight on Ferrex, or
Oh, I
I
don't
think,
know. Maybe I'm wrong.
well, because it's basically broken up into four little mods in a modular kind of story. Whereas like the first three is Andor getting off of Ferrex. Then the next three are the raid on whatever that planet was, that where they have to go to the Imperial outpost, and they have to steal the money
Mm-hmm.
in the heist. Then the next three are the prison arc, which is the strongest arc of the show. And then the last
Oh.
three are them going back to Ferrex because Aunt Petunia died, and he has to and go to the funeral, and that's where the Empire's trying to catch him.
Oh.
Um, that there are two Harry Potter alumni in
Hmm.
this show too. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Her, and then Mrs. Fig is Cyril's mom.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I think that the prison arc is definitely the strongest. Because the prison arc, they really play with a lot of themes, like especially as Cyril starts to rise with an ISB. Like,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I don't know if you noticed this, but like when you see Andor and his little group at that table assembling the parts for what we find out is the Death Star, um, that table is designed the exact same way as the table that Cyril is working at in ISB.
Oh.
And his little like cell that he's in looks like the bed that that Cyril's sleeping in his little like studio efficiency on
Mm-hmm.
Coruscant with his mom.
Oh. Okay.
Like, it's designed to like kind of mirror it for the two of them, and I think it's an interesting approach to kind of take those two characters and layer them that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that the thing the show does very well too is it crams in at least two or three really great dramatic monologues into every episode, and it never feels like you're bored by it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one that I think the best dramatic monologue on the show is Luthen, that's his name, Stellan Skarsgård's character.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when he's down in the bowels of Coruscant meeting with the guy from ISB, who's like, you have to stop this from happening because they're going to be they're going to kill this guy, and they're going to kill like 50 of your men if you don't stop them. And he's like, no, I can't do that. I have to let those people die. Because if we let the Empire think that losing 50 men is a big deal, they'll think our numbers are a lot smaller than they are. We have to like to not overshow the hand. Like, that whole thing is great. The whole thing with Marva giving her speech from beyond the grave in the finale, um, where she's like, if if I had the chance to do it all again, I would not have laid down the way I did. I would have stood up and fought. And the whole thing with like the natural state of the galaxy, the natural state of being is freedom, and tyranny requires constant effort to upkeep, so it's easy to break. It's such a great show in all of that, and I think really it does a lot for Star Wars in exploring what it is that forces the circumstances of Episode 4.
Hmm.
Um, I did not need the Death Star tie. That's my biggest complaint about the show.
Okay.
I think that ending it with the Death Star was kind of, I understand why they did it because it does tie Andor's time in jail to his inevitable death, but I don't think it needed to be that on the nose.
Mm-hmm.
I think it I think that post-credit scene should have been Thrawn.
Okay. I can see that. I think that would have been better.
Because like I think that like when I was watching it and they introduced Deidre and she's looking at all these weird trends and being like they're doing this to make it look there isn't a pattern, but there is in that it's so scattershot.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm like, there's another large blue person who works for the Empire who loves looking at weird patterns to track down the rebels, and I think he should show up. And then Yularen has a small role in one episode. Admiral Yularen is the guy with that 70s mustache
Mm-hmm.
in that one episode, and I was like, when that happened, I was like, oh fuck, yes, we're getting live action Thrawn in this show, and then it just never happened, and I was like, that's disappointing.
Yeah.
Um, do you have any other thoughts on Andor?
Um, it's not overly memorable, like at all. Um, I don't know if there's anything specific that I can think of that needed to be different. It's more,
I
it's
think the first
okay.
three
It's
episodes were
just not
slow.
up there.
I think that that's a lot of it is that the beginning of the show is slow. It takes a lot to get into the show.
That might
Um,
be it.
where it's like
And ain't nobody got time for that.
once you get to the heist arc, that's where it starts to get good. And it's very like Tony Gilroy made the show, and it is very much an espionage thriller in
Mm-hmm.
the vein of like I saw someone compare it to Michael Clayton, that movie with George Clooney,
Mm-hmm.
or the Bourne movies is what it feels like more than Star Wars. Um, and I think that the fact that the Star Wars-ness of it all is used so sparingly throughout the show that
Yeah.
when it does happen, it has such greater impact.
You think so?
I do. I think that like in episode, what was it, 3 or 4, like we hadn't seen a TIE fighter up until that
And
point.
you know, maybe it was just that it was not my style. Like it was not something that I could get into because it wasn't, it was a little, it was very serious.
That's what I liked about it. I thought that like, especially when it came to last year's shows, like what was it? Like Book of Boba Fett
Like I would have
didn't
been more
have
into it
that.
if it would have been like Star Wars Oceans movie.
Okay, I could see that.
That would be fun.
But like I think that like Book of Boba Fett was too silly, like and
Mm.
too like that whole very slow speed chase between the street rats with the Power Rangers speeders and like that was such a poorly done chase. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like it's so
Oh.
slow moving through Mos Espa, and I'm like, this is dumb. And then like the majority of Kenobi is not very good.
Mm-hmm.
Except for like the last 2 episodes where they go to the stronghold and then the fight with Vader on the last planet at the end. Besides those two things, the show isn't great.
Yeah.
And that was a big disappointment. I think it's just like this was just a lot better. Um,
Oh, that's a
but
good
like
point.
but like the TIE fighters that happened in that, you know, over the course of in that one episode where it's like they come in there and you just hear them screaming through. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my God, these things are actually scary at this point for the first
Mm-hmm.
time ever. Like even in A New Hope, the TIE fighters and the stormtroopers aren't really scary except for maybe in the opening shot
Okay.
when they're invading the blockade runner. But like when you get to the finale, when they bring in stormtroopers, I think that's the first time we see stormtroopers for the majority of the show. And it's like, oh, shit got real because they're bringing the military in now and they're
Mm.
gonna kill people. And then it's like they shoot people and
Yeah, it did
they
do a
just
better
stay
job of
down.
explaining like what stormtroopers are supposed to be, where they are supposed to be the heavy hitters and not what, other movies have made them out to be, which is Oh, these are their dunces that just can't even hit
Uh,
a
Yeah,
barnyard,
it's the cannon
barn
fodder.
door. Yes.
It's
But where they're supposed to be like elite special forces.
like that was the whole thing where like they bring them in and it's like they're killing people in that finale during the fight on Ferrex,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like people are dying and they're staying down, and it's not like we're just watching people get shot and it's like very quick cuts away. You're the camera stays on the dead body on the ground and you're like, wow, that's something.
Yeah, but they don't usually show that kind of thing.
Yeah. And then how did you feel about the Hall of Easter eggs on Coruscant that Luthen has? I had a problem with it. Um
Hall of Easter eggs.
Yeah, Luthen's shop has a bunch of cool artifacts from all over the galaxy. So like he
Oh,
has one of Padme's helmets, like that metal helmet crown thing she wears with the spikes. He has that. He has Starkiller's Sith Slayer armor. Um
oh, I
he,
didn't even notice.
yeah, he's got a lot of cool shit like that. But he also has both a Jedi and a Sith holocron, and I'm like, I would assume that Palpatine would know about this and he would have been in there to put a
Not
lightsaber through his chest.
necessarily.
I don't know. If there was a Sith holocron on the planet, you think he didn't know about it?
Yeah,
Really?
yes,
Or a Jedi holocron too? Because they cracked down on that shit.
yes. So who is it that has it?
Luthen, Stellan Skarsgård's character. He has that
Who
curio shop on
and
Coruscant.
who's the cure? Oh, okay, he's the little shop.
Yeah,
Not okay. Yeah. Why would he know?
because they did a big crackdown on Jedi artifacts in
But
the
there's
aftermath.
so many. There's so many and things got
I feel like a
snuck out. Like
holocron is
nothing.
definitely
There's
something.
always there's always reference in the books and stuff where they're talking about how oh one's appeared like because somebody did sneak it out or it did show up somewhere.
But he has it on a shelf in his store where any
Not every
asshole can walk in and see it.
not every asshole would know what it was.
That's true. Um, have you watched any
It
of the
would
new
take a
season of The
real
Bad Batch?
special asshole.
That's true. But also, if you're going to that store, I think you are the special asshole. It's kind of like the store where they're trying to sell the orb to in the first Guardians of the
And
Galaxy, where
it could
it's an
very much
artifact dealer.
they could be holocrons that are used up
That's true too.
that don't activate.
That's true too, because it's not like they're glowing; they're just kind of sitting there on a shelf, the two of them.
Well, they don't
'Cause-
always glow.
well, they do in the video game. That's how you know to pick them up.
That's so that way, yeah. I was like, that's so that way your dumbass can find it.
Like if you go to the top of the Death Star, they had one hidden at the top of the cannon because that's how you get the black lightsaber blade.
Oh,
Um, but yeah, have you watched any of the Bad Batch season three? Season two?
yeah, I think I'm totally up to date.
I just like they
I
touch
really
on
enjoy the Bad Batch.
a lot of the same kind of things about like the control of the Empire and that. When we get to the Bad Batch in a few weeks, we're gonna talk about that. But like
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's kind of what my favorite thing about them, what they're doing right now in the shows is kind of like taking the order of the Empire and juxtaposing it with the complete clusterfuck that is the New Republic.
Mm-hmm.
Because like that first episode of The Mandalorian, when we're introduced to Mando, and it's like, okay, well, I have these credits. No, I have Moncal credits. I have New Republic credits. Okay, we have Imperial credits. We'll take Imperial credits. It's like it's this clusterfuck. Meanwhile, that first episode of The Bad Batch, it's like everyone go to your nearest Imperial outpost. We will give you a social security number, and we will give you all of your money in Imperial credits.
Okay.
Like it's that very like the transition of power is a lot more orderly, and I think that that's doing a lot to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked how they took the what's called the whole making Dooku out to be the bad guy and for the entire war. I was like, that is such a great way to end that character who is an idealist at heart, who's
Mm-hmm.
just in it to protect his people, and then for him to be used the way he was by Palpatine, and then for him to die and for him to be scapegoated for the entire Clone Wars, I
Yes.
was like,
That
that
is
is
what he did though. That's like that's been part of the story since
no, but I feel
I
like but the thing is, it does kind of omit the key aspect of it, where it's like, yeah, there was the Sith guy who was trying to kind of
but nobody
had his
knew
hand on the
about that
wheel. Yeah,
guy.
but the Clone Wars started well before Dooku, because Dooku doesn't join up until we're getting way off topic here, but Dooku doesn't join up until midway through episode one.
That's true.
Because the Clone Wars start with the blockade on Naboo, which is before that.
That's true. Have you listened to the Dooku book?
I love that book.
Me too.
That
When are we doing that one?
I think I have that on the calendar actually.
Okay, cool.
Because that the next book is Kenobi, but I think that's the February book. Yeah, that's the
Okay.
February book. Um, but yeah, so final thoughts on Andor because you're running low. Are you running low on time or
Yes, we
okay?
have like 15 minutes.
Okay. So we'll do. I feel like we'll have a debate over where we rank it overall because I feel like that's going to be the big question here. For TV shows, it's definitely number one as of right now because we haven't done any other TV shows. Because like I said when we did last week, we're gonna do two separate rankings. We're gonna do a ranking, well, three rankings: ranking within canon versus not canon, ranking within what's it called? Ranking within its type, so book against book, TV against TV, movie against movie, and so on and so forth. And then we're also gonna do overall ranking,
I'm a
ranking everything
visual
again.
person. I think you're gonna have to share your screen if you want me to rank it. Or is
I
this
know.
the first one of a show that we've done?
This is the first show we've done.
Okay.
So let me just make a new line on here. Show Andor, number one, Andor. Now, this is canon, as is A New Hope. So right now we have A New Hope at number one.
Cool. And this is number one because
You,
of default.
no, because this is also canon.
Yeah, but it's one number one in TV show.
Right, but we also do
Oh my gosh,
overall
you've made
rankings.
this. This is so. I can't follow.
I don't think this is that difficult.
You're looking at
No, I just explained it. So we do each thing gets ranked.
it. No, I'm not. I just explained it.
Okay.
Wait,
Let me share
so
my screen once I fix this page. Um,
what are we doing after Andor?
Kenobi is the next one. Hang on.
Kenobi.
Let me
Okay.
not the show, the book.
Oh, yay. I like that book.
Okay, let me share my screen to you. So what we have here is this is the rankings. We have an overall ranking within the
Mm-hmm.
movies, within the shows, and then canon and legends.
Mm.
So A New
Okay.
Hope, the movies count for both canon and legends, so that's there. But this gets ranked in overall, in show, and in canon. So overall, would you say it's better or worse than A New Hope?
Um, worse.
Interesting. I had a feeling this was going to be a. That's why I left time for this. Why do you think it's worse than A New Hope?
Because I like the new A New Hope better.
Okay. Why?
Um, my feels, my heart.
Okay.
It's not objectively. I just so I remember A New Hope. I don't like all the changes that they made to it and everything, but I like A New Hope, and I'll rewatch A New Hope. I'm not gonna rewatch Andor.
I see. I
Is
think
that a
you're
good
right.
enough
I
reason?
think you're right about me not rewatching Andor. I'll rewatch parts of Andor.
Hmm.
Like I'll rewatch like the prison arc. I'll rewatch the finale. I'll like in the same way that like Loki. I won't rewatch Loki ever, but I'll rewatch the finale of Loki because the finale of Loki's fantastic.
Hmm.
Um, like I'm not gonna rewatch Andor beginning to end, especially considering the beginning of that is such a slow start.
Hmm.
Um, that said, A New Hope also has a very slow start.
That's true.
It does take 40 minutes for them to meet Han Solo. Or no, 40
Yeah.
minutes to get off Tatooine. And I'm like, I don't need 40 minutes of Tatooine. I
Hmm.
really don't. Um, Especially in a 2 hour movie, and then you also have the fight at the Death Star. So for anything to happen, it takes about 40 minutes, and I don't think that's necessarily required.
Hmm.
Um, and in the same way that like The Dark Knight is also not a rewatchable Batman movie, but in terms of quality, I think it is the best Batman movie.
But rewatchability is important.
That's true, but like Well, would you say that The Dark Knight or The Batman is more rewatchable? I would say, even though it's 3 hours long, I would say The Batman is more rewatchable.
Hmm.
But does that inherently make it better? We're getting
I
into a
don't
little bit of a
know.
philosophical debate about this now.
I like a movie that I want to turn around and rewatch it again. That to
I
me is
agree.
important.
That's why I said The Batman's better than The Dark Knight, and I got shit for it
Okay.
at work.
Okay. Well, you I'm not giving you shit for it.
Um,
Fuck those people at work.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I see me personally, I think Andor is better than A New Hope, and I think that I would say also Rogue One is also better than we haven't gotten there yet, but Rogue One too, because I think it is A New Hope works as its own self-contained story, but this gives much deeper context for a lot of the themes explored in that. Um, and it does reshape the way we view A New Hope in a weird way. Especially Rogue One. Like I
Hmm.
think that Rogue One ending the way it does makes it so that way you can't watch A New Hope the same way. And I think this reshapes how you view Rogue One by reshaping what we know about Cassian Andor and his backstory and everything that went into starting the rebellion and creating the Rebel Alliance.
Hmm.
Um, Also, I think Forrest Whitaker is a lot better in this than he was in Rogue One. Um, because I don't even know how the fuck he does it, but he talks on the in-breath in Rogue One. Like I
Like
don't
that?
like lies. I'm like I don't know how the fuck he does that without fucking up his throat. Like like
I,
he
I don't know. Maybe
he's
he
just
does
such
fuck up his throat.
he has such weird pronunciation of thing, or like not even that. It's like Christopher Walken was his dialect coach because like he got that one thing. He's like, "You're here to kill me." Like I'm just like, why is that? Like, did you only have Forrest Whitaker for one day, and you're like, all right, good enough. Like,
Yeah,
moving on.
probably.
Like, but I think it's a similar issue here, where it's like, I think he's a lot better in this one because I feel like they're like, you know what, let's give him like 3 or 4 takes, and we'll go with the best one.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I think that a lot of this show really worked for me. But the same thing goes for like the Sandman. The Sandman has a very slow start too. And I probably wouldn't rewatch The Sandman beginning to end, but I'd watch 24/7 and I would watch on the Beat of Her Wings or whatever the name of the episode with Death is. I would watch those episodes again. Um like I don't know. Um I, th- I don't know if we'll get a tiebreaker. I don't think Peter watched it, so we can't have a tiebreaker on this.
Okay.
So I will concede and I will put it below A New Hope for the sake of you need to leave soon.
Okay.
So I will concede on that, and then we'll put that below it here too. Andor. So now, if you look at my thing, we have our
Don't
overall
worry.
ranking.
I don't think that A New Hope is the best, so it will not continue to stay at one.
Oh no, I think that when we get to Empire Strikes Back, I think it will get bumped down, and I think also Tales of the Jedi.
I think my favorite, I think my favorites are always going to land under rewatchability and what I've rewatched and
So your
what I
best
would
movie is going to
rewatch.
be Revenge of the Sith.
Um, Stay tuned to find out.
I think Revenge of the Sith is the most rewatchable. I Because that's the issue too. How do you make that claim and then put Empire Strikes Back above it? 'Cause I don't think Empire Strikes Back is as rewatchable as A New Hope.
We're not making that claim.
Okay, well we'll see. We'll see when we
Yeah,
get to that.
we'll see. You
Okay.
just put so many words into my mouth that I never said.
Um, let's see. We got
Oh,
5 minutes. Do you want to do the getting to know the the what's it called? Getting to know the host question with the last 5 minutes?
yeah.
Okay. So this week's question: what's the best movie you've seen in the last year that did not come out in the last year? And movie you've seen for the first time.
This is not Star Wars related.
That's the point.
Oh, boring.
I texted you this yesterday and you never answered.
I I probably didn't know what the fuck you were talking about.
I said, do you want me to tell you the getting to know the host non-Star Wars question beforehand?
What did I say?
You never answered.
Yeah, okay. I didn't see it.
So I did alert
Um,
you.
you alerted me. Okay. What's the best one that I've seen this year?
Well, within the last year, that didn't
Within the
come out
last year.
that didn't come out within the last year that you've seen for the first time.
Um, can you hear my dog crying?
No.
Let's see. I don't know.
All right, what if we
I
eliminate
don't know
the
what's
scene for
come
the first time?
out.
No, no, but the point is it didn't come out. Like, what movie have you seen for the first time within the last year that you liked?
Just saw The Lost City with Sandra Bullock.
That movie was not bad.
Oh, and I didn't like this, but I just saw the new Jurassic movie and I'm
That was
so
bad.
sad.
That was bad. That was really not good. I really did not
Mm-hmm.
like that movie. For me, I would say that didn't come out in the last year, which was the point of the question that you ignored. Um,
Well, I don't know when things came out.
okay. Um, I would say I just watched recently Francis Ha for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
which is a. Did you see Marriage Story on Netflix with Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver?
No.
I feel like based on the actors, that would have been up your alley. But it's a
But now I'm gonna have to.
yeah, it's about these two people who are getting a divorce. Um, so that director partnered with did an independent movie about 10 years ago with Greta Gerwig, who's a director now, who's directing the Barbie movie this year. And it's about this girl who is just out of college who wanted to be a like she went to theater school
Mm-hmm.
and she wants to be a dancer, but she's just not like up to professional grade. She's like just below professional grade. So she doesn't quite know what to do with her life.
Mm-hmm.
And she's watching everyone else around her kind of do their thing. And I was like, it is such a great movie. Um, and I don't think Greta Gerwig quite gets enough acclaim for her acting ability. Um, because she's a really good director. She did like Little Women a few years ago. Um, it opened against Rise of Skywalker, Little Women. But she did that, and she should have got nominated for Best Director for it, but she didn't. And it's like if you look at that and you look at she's got Barbie coming up. She did Lady Bird a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so she can direct very well, but she also can act very well too. I don't think she gets enough credit for that. Um, but yeah. So to go through what we have coming up in the next few weeks, let me end the screen share.
I
How do I?
shouldn't. Do I get to end with my joke?
Well, let me go through the next four episodes and tell people what we're covering, so that way they
Oh,
know.
no,
And
stop.
then you do the show. What? You'll do the joke after.
I'm sorry, I'm yelling at the dog.
Oh,
The
I
blind
can't.
dog is just getting all inside the the uh the wires. And I was like, no, stop, you're gonna hang yourself.
Okay, so next week is the 2006 book Kenobi. The week after that, on February 1st, will be Star Wars Battlefront, the original from 2004. In the week after that, on February 8th, we'll be doing The Empire Strikes Back. And on February 15th, we'll be doing The Bad Batch Season 1.
Okay.
So now your joke.
Okay. So in honor of next week's episode for Obi-Wan or for the Kenobi book,
Hmm.
what did the specter of Obi-Wan Kenobi say to the bartender?
I don't know what.
Give me a beer and a mop.
A mop?
A mop.
Oh, okay.
Get it?
Yes. Uh,
Do you need help?
now I get it. The difference between getting it and it's like you ever see that picture from Aqua Teen Hunger Force where it's the little meat guy and he says,
Mm-hmm.
"I get it. It's not funny, but I get it." Uh, I think that's a great way to go out on every episode. It's just a joke that's just like very just a little bit of a clunker. I think it's a great way to end every episode.
Thanks.
Um, it's like you spend like a week trying to come up with a joke, and you're like, "This is great. He'll find this hilarious." Um,
It's more like I run into them and I just write them
it's
down.
like you Google it, and it's like here's a list.
I
So we'll
just
wrap up there for today because Josie does have to
stop
get going.
dog. He just keeps running into the table.
Um, you should see if you can get him trained to do like Daredevil and like use echolocation.
I I think that might be why he cries so much. Okay, bye.
Bye. Have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, you too.